And we are live once again. Hello and welcome to the Prince Magnum Channel, where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to In Your Face. This is going to be kind of an unusual In Your Face. An unusual one in the sense that most people misunderstand myself, Prince Magnum. They misunderstand. They think a lot of times that I have a beef with law enforcement, and that is far from the case. Couldn't be further from the truth. If anything, I'm actually a fan of law enforcement. I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. My beef is, really bad police officers. Bad police officers. That's that's my problem, and there's a lot more of them than there used to be. Wow, I mean it's ridiculous. Um, so we're let's just get right to brass tacks. I wanted to get that little disclaimer out of the way. I don't have a problem with law enforcement officers, but I do have a problem with the situation that this video is about. Real quick, let me get y'all caught up to speed. This video is actually for a gentleman by the name of Officer Ryan Miller, who was pushed off of the Farmington Police Department. Um, Officer Ryan is quite possibly one of the finest gentlemen I have ever met in my life. He's one of the kindest police officers I've ever met in my life. Um, that being said, that's who this video is for. Let me get you caught up to what has happened in current events here in St. Francis County. Officer Ryan Miller, kind gentleman, um, suffers from depression, um, and he goes out of his way to try to help those in need. And he talked to a lot of people know that he's probably saved more lives than uh, than than I could shake a stick at. I mean, seriously. And he's a kind gentleman. And his depression nearly got the best of him a few times, from what I understand. I would have never have known, talking to the guy, that he fought depression that badly. Um, on top of that, I don't know whether or not he meant to, but I know in a lot of places there's a movement for good. Good police officers have really went out of their way to kind of make this movement where they kind of humanize the badge a little bit more, kind of putting, making the people wearing those badges seem a little bit more human. There's a particular police officer right here on YouTube called Mike the Cop, who does actually go out of his way and try to humanize the badge, and I think that's an awesome movement. Well, Officer Ryan Miller is one of those heroes who's been trying to do that. Um, and again goes out of his way to do a great deal many things, to try to help those in need with depression, and from what I understand has even put his own life on the line to try to save people from themselves. Law enforcement, and he's one of the many heroes that we have here in St. Francis County. Thank goodness for him. That being said, describing this awesome gentleman, Officer Ryan Miller, um, you know, um, I've had the opportunity to get to know him a little bit. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I guess I really didn't know the gist of what was going on. But in a nutshell, let me tell you all, I've had some opportunity to work with this particular awesome gentleman. Uh, while I was alternate DCM and even DCM of District 6 here, uh, down here in our little neck of the woods, um, Officer Ryan Miller and many of the other officers within the Farmington Police Department helped me distribute Where and When. Where basically we had this program set up for a long while that if they pulled somebody over for drinking and driving, of course they had to take them to jail and everything had to confine to Missouri law. Um, many of these officers, including Officer Ryan Miller, would include with the paperwork when they put these guys in jail. They would include a meeting schedule, a where and when, as we call it, of where to find meetings in Alcoholics Anonymous so they can get help. So Officer Ryan Miller was part of that movement that I helped start, which we're not doing that since I stepped down as DCM. We're not doing that anymore. But while I was involved in service work within the service structure right here in St. Francis County and some of the other counties around the area, we were, he was part of that movement. Don't know how many more lives we saved. But again, that just goes to show what kind of officer this guy is. All that being said, he was pushed out of the police department. He basically had his job stripped from him, more or less. And what it came down to was the prosecutor that's in Farmington. Now, I read his letter, and not everything that happens down here crosses the desk of the Prince Magnum Channel, but every once in a while we get lucky, and we're able to kind of tie some things in. Officer Ryan Miller, being the awesome guy that he is, trying to continue that movement towards kind of humanizing the badge, which is I'm all for. I'm all for this. I wish more officers did this, and there was less restrictions on this. Evidently, there was something that happened, and somebody was arrested for a very serious crime, and the guy got probation. And someone posted a comment, and at first Officer Miller didn't quite bite, but then he turned around. They kind of egged him on a little bit, and he kind of posted something where it was off color and basically said, well, I guess if drugs were involved, the guy would have gotten serious time. And it was just a joke. It was just a joke. Well, evidently the prosecutor didn't like that and started kind of pecking away at his career. This was totally, an off-color joke, and it's stuck in the craw of the prosecutor. Well, of course, he's a politician. He doesn't want nothing like that, so he kind of pecked away, and the police chief did what he could to salvage this hero's career in our community. And, finally, as of, let's see, yesterday, Officer Ryan Miller was basically, long story short, he was forced to leave the police department because of this. He was kind of forced off the Farmington Police Department. And, all because this prosecutor, had a beef. And what it boiled down to is the first thing that it started with an off-color comment, and just kind of joking, and then it turned into where he kind of started attacking Officer Miller's problem with depression, and that's wrong, okay? And there's a lot of this going around, anyways. For the record, I will openly admit, I think our society is way too medicated. And we just need to kind of start. There comes a time when doctors need to stop prescribing medication so much, and we need to just get these people into therapy, okay? Myself, I suffer from alcoholism, and I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm open about that. That being said, there's really not a whole lot in the way of medication. I have to go seek other types of help. So you see where I'm coming from on this. Those that suffer from severe mental illness, like the bipolar depression sort of thing that we see occasionally happening more and more than it used to be, These people really, they need the help that, they need all the help they can get. Um, so I'm not necessarily, I'm one of those people. There comes a time because, I've worked in the medical field for so long, I know that many doctors all across the country they do get kickbacks when they start prescribing medication. That's one of the problems, and we're over medicated. And a lot of people out there, honestly and truthfully, just need good, solid therapy. They just need good therapy. They need more psychology than medication. So, but there are just some that they have to have that medication. They need that medication because all the therapy in the world is not going to be able to touch the chemical imbalances within their brain that cause those problems. So I am an advocate on one hand, but I'm also kind of a proponent of, so we need to find that happy medium. Officer Ryan Miller is one of those happy mediums because he's saved lives when medication, just isn't enough. He's a good man. So this prosecutor attacked the problem that he has, being that he's an advocate for seeking more help for depression and, of course, humanizing the badge. This prosecutor absolutely attacked him and basically forced him off the police department. All that being said, this prosecutor is up for election and attacking, one of this county's absolute finest heroes, that wears a badge and will risk life and limb to save someone from themselves. And I mean, he's, let me tell you, I have, after all the things that I have went through, you figure I would be one of the first ones not to come to this guy's aid. Let me say up front, okay, I have actually talked with this man. He's helped me get where and wins to those that desperately need to know where to find Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me say right now, he is a hero in my eyes. How much of a hero? Well, I'm a father of 5 children, and I can tell you right now, talking to the man off duty and on duty, if I was that man's father, I know I would be one of the most proudest fathers that ever walked this planet to be, to be that man's dad. I know. So I don't know his family situation, but I know if I was his dad, I would be one of the most proudest men that ever walked this planet because he's that kind of a man. To go even a step further, how much of a good man is Officer Ryan Miller? Well, I'll say it like this. Sometime back, it's been probably almost a couple of years ago, I mentioned in a video where I had actually said that there's a particular officer in Farmington, Missouri, that if he was ever in trouble, that I would take a bullet for him. That is Officer Ryan Miller. For the first time, I openly say in a live stream of all things that if I ever seen Officer Ryan Miller in trouble, I would take a bullet for that man. I would risk my own life for that man. That is how much of a good man he is. That I would risk life and limb, not being there for my children, my wife, and that sort of thing. Putting my own life at risk, just a normal everyday civilian for this man. And I believe I can safely say that there are many of us in the community that feel the same way. He's a good man. He's a positive man. He's a bright spot in sometimes this very bleak and dismal world. It is safe to say that that not only do I have compassion for Officer Ryan Miller, that I love him as an honest, hardworking man in our community. There's not many like him, and it's a crying shame that there isn't. All that being said, while we're on the subject that this prosecutor is not only attacked a good man and is blatantly discriminating against officers who suffer from mental illness, let's talk about some things that the current prosecutor who is up for re-election, doesn't want you to know. Let's talk about the court case over my son, Prince Dax. which came to a close not too long ago. In that courtroom, which the transcripts are, they are public, okay? I was able to prove in that courtroom that many of the state representatives were guilty of perjury. I sat outside that courtroom for a good little bit. I did not see a single one of them let out in handcuffs. Have we heard of those people being up for criminal charges? The answer is no. Perjury, state of Missouri, St. Francis County, Missouri, Farmington, Missouri. These people committed an acts of perjury, not one, not two, numerous. Was able to prove it in the courtroom. The information is right here on the Prince Magnum channel. And are these people in handcuffs? The answer is no, they are not. So, should the prosecutor get reelected? I think the evidence speaks for itself. The answer is no, for those that missed that. We call this negligence, on his behalf, okay? So, this proves my point, okay? Officer Miller does deserve to be reinstated as a police officer and to be given the same respect as his peers. And I believe there's not a single police officer around who would disagree with me down here. He's one of the finest gentlemen I have ever met. And the fact that that he has been wrongfully, pushed around like this. I mean, this is an elected politician. This is who we trusted to enforce the law. And and this politician pushes around a guy just trying to make a living. Wow. And on top of that, one of the finest heroes I have ever met, in a blue uniform wearing a badge, I'm blown away, folks. I am blown away. I mean, what kind of world do we live in where we can, where we elect somebody and trust, and he can't put the real criminals in jail, but he'll push around a guy, like Officer Miller. I'm blown away. Again, for those who do not know, Officer Ryan Miller, and I say Officer Ryan Miller, is one of the finest gentlemen I have ever met. Wearing a badge or otherwise, he's one of the kindest gentlemen I have ever met. And I actually went onto my Facebook page, told everybody I was going to be doing this video, and how, I'm angry. I'm very angry, and I'm outraged that that police officers are treated like this. We hear it all the time in the news, how, all the bad that police, and here's a shining example of a kind and loving soul who happens to wear a badge and a gun, and to be pushed around and to be discriminated against because of a mental illness that he can't control. He has it, just like I can't control that I have alcoholism. I can't control that I had a stroke. I can't control these things. But yet here is a kind gentleman, that blows my mind, okay? Blows my mind. So that's why I wanted to do this video. Folks, if you live in Farmington, do not vote for the current prosecutor. I don't even care to know the man's name. You can look it up yourself. Don't vote for him. Vote for a man that's going to support a police officer like Officer Ryan Miller. And whatever you do, after this prosecutor is out of office, don't vote for him for anything. I don't care if it's the local dog catcher. This man does not deserve any position in public office. If anything, this guy needs to be digging ditches somewhere in, say, like, I don't know, Antarctica. He doesn't need to be. This is a prosecutor that has forgotten we live in the United States. And despite the off-color comment, Officer Ryan Miller was exercising his First Amendment right. Bear that in mind. So, again, any politician who's afraid of the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, doesn't deserve to be a politician, especially, I don't need to, well, especially the first two, you know. So that's where I stand on that. You know, Officer Ryan Miller, uh, I know you stepped down yesterday, and it breaks my heart because, I know when you're on duty, I felt safer. I felt safer, and for that matter, I know there's a lot of bad PR about Farmington. I'll be honest with you, I've not. It's been a long time since I've ran into a bad Farmington police officer. There's some really good ones up there. Some good, honest, hardworking men and women wearing badges up there, and and I feel safe in Farmington, with you guys on duty. But I really always, especially felt safe when I seen you. And again, um, there was actually a couple of times where I actually seen you out on patrol, and I felt safer wherever I was going. Didn't matter what was going on. I just felt safer knowing you were out there. And again, I'm going to openly say it right to the camera for the whole world to see. If you were ever in trouble, I would be I to the and I say it now, openly. I would take a bullet for you, even if it meant ending my own life. I would take a bullet for you. Why? Because you're that kind of guy. You um, every time that every time that I seen you, I just, words can't express the good feelings that I have every time I see you. So, and especially knowing a little bit more of what you have went through gives me a deeper respect for you. So even despite all of this, hey, you know, just know that not only every time you see me, just know that your story now goes beyond just Facebook and mainstream media. Now the whole world can see your story right here on the Prince Magnum channel. And there's an awful lot of us that watch all around the world. You know, your story does deserve to get out, that there are good police officers out there, and you are one of the finest. So, that being said, again, um, thank you to those who made sure that I got this story on my Facebook page, that I was able to, to get the details of what needed to be gotten. Again, Officer Ryan Miller is one of the finest gentlemen I have ever met. So I want to give a special thank you to all of you who made sure I had that story in front of me. Um, and again, I also want to thank Officer Ryan Miller, because despite the fact that uh, I was forced to, I was forced to plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit. Um, Officer Ryan Miller never treated me as a criminal, and more than anything, he always treated me as another human being. And um, I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for that. Um, wow. I did not mean to get emotional. I apologize. Um, Means the world to me. So, that being said, if you're not subscribed to oh, wow, we have someone on here. Wow. Um, if you missed this, be sure to catch the bulk of the playback of what I said earlier. Basically, I'm standing up for one of the finest police officers that I have ever met, uh, Officer Ryan Miller of the Farmington Police Department, who was forced to step down as a police officer because of an off-color comment, a joking comment that he made on his Facebook page, and it ticked off a politician, a police officer. Well, not I'm sorry, a politician, the prosecutor in Farmington. And then basically in the process of this, he was bullied because he suffers from depression. And Please, after this is loaded, be sure to check the playback on that. Right now, I'm still choking back tears because of talking about how good of a man that Officer Miller really is. I mean, he's one of the kindest gentlemen that I have ever met in my life, wearing a badge or otherwise. He's a good man, and I just, um, after all the, again, after all that I have been through and everything, you know, I've had the opportunity to work with this police officer. Again, most people don't know this. While I was in the service structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, as the alternate DCM for District 6, and then the acting DCM, which I eventually stepped down because some issues that happened within the service structure in District 6, being Alcoholics Anonymous, that is not anybody else's problem, and I won't air those problems, okay? I won't air those at all. But while I was in the service structure down here, let me say up front, okay? Officer Ryan Miller and I had the opportunity to work together along with many, many other police officers in Farmington, Missouri. Basically, what we set up was where I would give them meeting schedules or actual, what we call where and whens. Basically, you would look on the list. You could find a meeting, whether it was open or closed, handicap accessible, smoking, non-smoking, what time, what place, what type of meeting it is, all that other stuff, all in a little synapse, and you knew where to find them within District 6. The police officers in Farmington, including some of the sheriff's deputies, Park Hills Police Department. I think I even worked a little bit with Leadington, Leadwood, Bon Terre. My God, I worked with Bon Terre. Worked with many, numerous police agencies, and basically down here. And we were able to set up where if they pulled somebody over for a DWI, obviously they were going to jail, but with everything that was included while they were being put into jail, they had a meeting schedule, or as we know in AA, a where and when, where to find us so they can get help. Officer Ryan Miller was one of those people at the forefront with me, okay, trying to help get these people help. Who knows how many lives this man has saved that suffer from alcoholism, and then being an advocate for depression because he himself suffered it, still suffers it today. And to have an elected official, a prosecutor, bully him, push him around, force him to resign as a police officer. Wow, that is upsetting. I will say again to the camera, two things that need to be said about this fine gentleman. Number one, again, since we have someone on, I want them to hear this live. Officer Ryan Miller is one of the kindest gentlemen I've ever met. And if he was ever in trouble, I would take a bullet for him, possibly ending my own life for this compassionate man. Because I believe that this world needs more shining examples like him. And number two, Officer Ryan Miller is one of the, again, he's a shining hero. He's a shining hero. I was forced to plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit. Okay, by from false evidence presented by a dirty police officer. And Officer Ryan Miller never, ever, ever treated me like a criminal. He treated me as an equal. If that does not, and he knew I was on probation. And every time we had an encounter, I always felt like I walked away with something more than I did before. He is one of the most compassionate gentlemen that I have ever met in my life. And the man wore a badge. I mean, again, after all that I have been through, for this kind-hearted gentleman wearing a badge, that every time I seen him, to treat me with the same respect as anybody else, that means the world to me. And again, I'm starting to get choked up because this man was bullied by this prosecutor. Again, this prosecutor has numerous people that he should have been prosecuting in the case over my son that just closed not even maybe a couple of months ago. I kid you not, folks. I was able to prove here on the Prince Magnum channel, not once, not twice, but numerous times, again and again and again. And even in that courtroom was proving that these people that were representing the state were guilty of perjury, and they still walk the streets. And this prosecutor knows it, the one that's sitting in Farmington right now, and he's up for re-election. Dude. I mean, seriously. Think about that, folks. Think about that for a moment. And these records are public. Proven here on the Prince Magnum channel that this prosecutor does not do his full, complete job. So, I mean, it's not, this gentleman who just popped on, let me say again, this officer is a good man. All the nasty stuff in the media, all that horrible stuff that you hear, all of it about police officer, here is a fine example right here in our fair community. And again, I will say, every time I seen him, I always felt safer. Again, and I know there's a lot of people that do say bad things about the Farmington PD, and I will openly say, okay. Since you just joined us, let me explain. I'll give you a short synopsis, and what I will go ahead and I will suggest stop for a moment. I may have to stop for a moment. My wife keeps trying to call, but she's notorious. It's like, why does the phone ring when you're in the shower? Well, why does the phone ring during a live stream for a YouTube creator? Short synopsis. If you will, the particular officer that I am so sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let me get back to what's going on. Officer Ryan Miller. Yes, I had to answer the wife's phone call. Wives are important, okay? Again. Real quick, because I know the gentleman who Hearsay Henderson has joined us, or he was on here. The phone can't do two things at once. It can only do so much at once. Real quick, short synopsis. Again, if you're just joining us. Officer Ryan Miller basically was bullied by a prosecutor. Again, check the playback and you can get the full story. It's all over Facebook. It's coming up on regular media, mainstream media. And again, mainstream media doesn't always report the news like they're supposed to. So I'm really glad that this story is getting out. But again, I wanted myself as Prince Magnum to stand up for this. You can tell I've been eating earlier. Spicy foods. Anyhow, I wanted to make sure that, that everybody who possibly could see this, does see this, And as a matter of fact, I even, slapped on the Punisher t-shirt. You can see right there. I love this shirt. Love this shirt. Glad Walmart got it in. And wearing my custom Punisher hat because, This prosecutor is not going to get away with this. Okay, I'm going to, again, this prosecutor, um, I'm going to say this again, is letting, real criminals. The last day I was in court over my son, there was more real criminals in that courtroom representing the state than there really was, quite possibly, in the county jail at that time. And that's saying something, okay? Because there's a lot of them in county. All right. Um, that, that's how bad it is. And that prosecutor knows it, but it's been let go, you know? So again, should have seen the lawyer that was representing the state. He didn't know what to think, okay? Which eventually I'll bring that up, even the guy's name, so he can watch his career blink in front of his eyes, since, he was dumb enough to represent them people. Not his fault. He just had what they presented. You should have sat down with me first. It was all rehearsed. It was absolutely hilarious because I really threw a big wrench in his career. But I won't destroy him too much. Just let it be a lesson in be careful who you represent. Okay, don't take cases and foundations of bullshit. Anyhow, um, again, back to Officer Ryan Miller. Yeah, because of the kind man that he is, of course, I'm going to rush to his aid. As Prince Magnum, we need more fine police officers like him. There's not enough in this world, especially here in the United States. There's a lot of bad ones, and I wish there. Um, Again, there is a mini movie documentary that's coming out here on the Prince Magnum channel showing how bad the Washington, Missouri police department really is. And how safe should you feel in Washington? You shouldn't. If they could clone Officer Ryan Miller, I can tell you where to start packing the clones. Start in Washington. Um, you know, we want the original down here, though. But that just goes to also show often imitated, never duplicated. But I wanted to be able to look at the camera and again tell Officer Ryan Miller that um, that whether he's wearing a badge or not, to me he will always be one of the greatest police officers, one of them, quite possibly. I would have to almost say in the top five. You can't get me to rate, but in the top five of greatest police officers that I have ever met in my life. He's one of the kindest. And we have another one on. It might be the same guy, I don't know. But he is a good man. He's a fine man. And the fact that this prosecutor just blatantly discriminated against him for depression just because of an off-color joke. Come on. And you know, I guess again, if you kept up with the Prince Magnum channel, that I have also had reported some years back some of the corruption that went on with the prosecutor's office right in Farmington, and and that was turned over to the Alex Jones show. And there was a few attempts on my life during that time frame. And that was back in 2010. You know, they wanted me out of that courtroom in a hurry. Wow. You know, again, these are things that just don't come up down here, but need to. But anyhow, again, um, as of yesterday, as I'm making this video, Officer Ryan Miller resigned from the Farmington Police Department, and it breaks my heart because I know what kind of work he does. But I do know it is safe to say that I know Bonter would love to pick up a guy like that. Awesome guy. Believe me, they could use him. They could use him. Bonter, there's some struggles. Let's just say that I know there's some struggles within the PD down here, and I know current police chief Doug Calvert does everything he can. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place a lot of times. I know a lot of times, on Burt TV. He's a very emotional guy, big bad Burt of Burt TV. But I know Bon Terror could definitely use a guy like Officer Ryan Miller. Any police department, including the sheriff's department, could use this man. Shoot, even it's safe to say that our highway patrol could definitely use a man like him. Missouri Highway Patrol, there's your guy right there. I'm telling you, this guy could do amazing things. You know, um, I'm not a Bible thumper. We know that I'm pagan, but I know in the Bible that, um, you know, I'll say it like this. I'm gonna, and I'm gonna kind of quote a movie in this case, but I'm gonna relate it to down here. So I'll just say it like this, as passionately as I can. With all the problems that are going on here in St. Francis County, a lot of serious problems. Um, you know, God said that he would save Sodom and Gomorrah if you know could find 10 righteous men. I think in relation to Officer Ryan Miller for St. Francis County, it may just come down to him, just one righteous man, and that would be Officer Ryan Miller. And it comes from the movie Valkyrie, which of course we know that there was many people who fought for their freedom against Nazi Germany. And I guess it's safe to say that we're seeing similar things right here in St. Francis County, and it came down on a good man. So that's where I stand, Maverick Nation, standing up for a good man who wore a badge and treated all of us as equals regardless. All right, since there's nobody on at the moment, again, if you missed it, please check this in the playback and be sure to smash the like button on this. And if you're not subscribed to the Prince Magnum channel, definitely hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon and hit it hard. And be sure that you, for the first time ever, share this video on Facebook, Twitter, I don't care what social media, even MySpace, okay? Share it and share it often, okay? Make sure the word gets out, okay? And if you've not checked out my Patreon account, be sure to do so. Be sure to do so, okay? Please. If you have any money to drop in there as a donation, it'd be greatly appreciated. If we are having a giveaway. Again, I've got some really awesome stuff. Plan to add a little bit more. Who knows what will go in that box? That box actually is right here. Souvenirs and, of course, things that I'll be autographing specifically for you. Again, check me out on Facebook and Twitter as well. Brings us to the usual spot. Brings us to that usual spot. Get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is. Just do something with yourself. Idle hands and a creative mind do not make good bedfellows, if you will. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet and do something special for them today. I know because I had to cut that phone call a little short with Princess Faye, I owe her a really long back rub. And as always, for all of you out there, especially for Officer Ryan Miller, if no one out there has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you and have a happy 24. Thank you.